Shalom Israel. First and foremost, I give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh Hashem Shai, Hashem Kakadash, the barns of the apostles, and else great millstone for teaching us his truth, peace, and blessings. To the whole collective Israel, Shalom. Yahweh is the name of the Hemphonish Hebrew, by Hashem is the name, and Yahweh Shai is the name of the begotten Son. Back in our lesson. And today, I'm going to be giving a little testimony of the dream I had dealing with the chariots, the so-called UFOs today, and what they're coming to do. And I have a few examples in the background just to give you a little idea and a depiction of what I saw or what the chariots looked like in my dream. And I have a few things written down just to, in my notes, just in case I forgot anything, because as soon as I woke up from that dream, I started to jot some things down just in case. Because I believe it was a spiritual dream. As you know, every dream is not a vision or, dealing with prophecy, so you got to be careful and wary of that. But I believe this one was spiritual, especially, when it was dealing with the chariots and, beaming people down, especially. When you read the second Ezra 13, the 13th chapter, and how you're going to have a lot of these chariots, beaming people down, turning people into literal dust, shooting those concentrated beams of fire, which I saw in my dream. Now, step right into it. I don't want to stall at the intro too long or make this a super, big, gigantic lesson, but let's dive right into it. This is a dream about the chariots beaming people down, which I pretty much title it for the, the topic of the dream. But now it says, I see the chariots, which, in the dream, I'm just going to go off the top of my head, and if I forget anything, I'll just go back to my notes. But, in the dream, I saw, a couple chariots, which you see in the background. That's what they look like in the dream, which, in the dream, I already knew there were chariots, Because near, the middle part of the dream, I start to, pull up my phone and, record them and say, Shalom Israel, pretty much going to the siding, of the chariots. But we'll get to that point. But, I see the chariots, and I believe I was either outside and I was pretty much inside, but I believe I saw them outside and I was inside near the other part of it. But I said I looked to the window in the front yard and a lot of people are stopped and recording. So after I saw the chariots, I believe I went inside and I was looking outside and you had tons of people pretty much just stopped out in front of my house. You had people in their cars and people standing just in awe and shock. They're recording and just and just shook at what they were seeing. Which I'm going to get a quick scripture just to go along with it. Which was Wisdom of Solomon, chapter, I believe, 5 and 2. As when they see it, they should be troubled with terrible fear. And in the dream, people were screaming, man. Especially when these chariots start to bring that fire, man. Those laser beams down. So when they see it, they should be troubled with terrible fear and should be amazed at the strength of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for. So these people were shook and were afraid, man. Especially nearing the end part of it, when these chariots started to shoot these laser beams, man. But this is going to show that they're in awe and they're going to be in fear, which I saw in my dream. Now let's jump back to this point right here. Now it says, I looked through the window in the front yard and a lot of people are stopped and recording. So then I go to the backyard, and record myself, the chariots, and what I'm looking at. And once in the dream, I already knew there were chariots because, I started to say, Shalom Israel, and started to pretty much, I was going to speak on, the chariot that I was looking at. But then you had that chariot start to, shoot laser beams, man. And so I go to the backyard and record. I say, Shalom Israel. The chariot starts shooting, and you see the shots going everywhere and start to land in the houses in front of me. So you had these chariots start to, shoot these laser beams, which, if you've seen the movie Star Wars, kind of like the guns stormtroopers have, those type of laser beams that are being shot out, it's kind of like in that type of manner, for lack of better words. Just kind of like a machine gun, how it shoots bullets. You see, each one of them, it was kind of like that. And they were going everywhere. That says, now I stopped, so I can read my notes. It says the chariot starts shooting, and you see the shots going everywhere, and start to land in the houses in front of you. You have these, shots getting closer and closer to kind of where I was. They started hitting the houses, next to mine. It says start shooting, and you see the shots go everywhere, or going everywhere, and start to land in the house in front of me. But none of the shots hit me. So that was a faith booster right there. Because it started to get closer and closer, and they didn't hit me at all. But the other shots hit me. And I said all the people I saw near the front yard or whoever were now in the backyard. The people that I mentioned that were in the front yard recording and pretty much starstruck. are now pretty much in the backyard. Now it says, all the people I saw in the front yard or whoever were now in the backyard trying to get in the house before I closed the door. So other people, kind of, backing up inside. As your flesh, you're just going to be jumpy, you're going to be doubting. Because those shots started to get pretty close, And your flesh, am I going to get hit by that? And, having those doubts. But all the people I saw, which were that right there, which they were trying to pretty much, I believe, enter to where I was, because I believe I, stepped back inside and I was about to, close that door. And before I closed that door, you see a gigantic laser beam just take out everyone that was next to me. Which I'm going to read what I have written down right here. Now it says, whoever were now in the backyard trying to... So all the people I saw near the front yard, or whoever were now in the backyard trying to get in the house before I closed the door, I see all of them get destroyed, and I was safe. And that's pretty much the part where I, woke up from the dream, and I just went to my notes and just, typed some things down just because I forgot it. I believe it was, a pretty spiritual dream, dealing with these chariots, because you're also going to have the chariots play a part in the destruction, that's to come. You're going to have them beaming people down. If you've seen the movie War of the Worlds, that's a good example right there, where they're turning people into literal dust, man. You see their clothes floating in the air. And that's also another good example, because, when the people were, pretty much looking at the chariots, that's kind of a good example. So I'm going to put a photo right here, with how they were looking, But let's read the last part of it one more time. Now it says, they're trying to get in the house before I close the door. I see all of them get destroyed, and I was safe. As soon as I was about to, close that door, you just... Because, when you're closing the door, you still see some things outside, and you see all the people that were kind of, piled up right there, just taken out. Destroyed, man. There's tons of screaming, which I have a few other points written down right here. There's a lot of screaming, especially near the end part of it. And also, when I was recording, the chariot, saying Shalom Israel, I was pretty much going to speak on that chariot sighting. But then you had these chariots start to, shoot, those contributing fire, those laser beams. And, in my mind, you had those a couple thoughts that popped up when I started seeing those shots go off from those chariots. And so I was also saying, this place is through, finished. Like, we out of here. Those are the exact thoughts that came to mind when I was, pretty much in that dream. Because it was pretty vivid, And once I started to see them, shoot those laser beams, those contra beams of fire, I was like, hey, this place is through. This place is finished, man. We out of here. And also to, bring up another point, I almost forgot to add this just before I dive into the scriptures. Just the other day, or just yesterday before I had this dream, it was at nighttime. I was taking out the trash, and I looked to my left, and I see a kind of a reddish light, which I thought was a plane at first. Because when it's nighttime, you have planes that will shine specific lights just to show that they're in the air, or to warn other planes that are kind of close to them or flying by that they're right there. So I continue to take out the trash, and I throw it away, and then I look back to where I saw that red light just to kind of make sure, and then it was gone. So that just kind of pretty much made it clear that it was a chariot, because usually when planes have that red light on, it stays on, especially at nighttime. But as soon as I turned back to where I was looking, it was gone. And to also mention the fact that it was red, and having this dream right here, these chariots that I saw had like a red light to them. Actually, you see in the images right here, it's pretty much kind of what they look like right there. I was looking up the images to find what kind of looked like it was red lightning. So pretty much what I saw. But let's dive into scriptures. Like I said, I don't want to stall at the intro too long. This is Acts chapter 2 verse 17. As it shall come to pass in the last days, saith the Most High, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. So the Lord's pouring out spirit upon all flesh. That's why I see even the heathen nations, receiving dreams and visions of the destruction that's coming to this place, man. Our Lord coming back angry. Even have a few brothers, having dreams of, the MOTB getting, implemented and mandated, and the chaos or something, people lining up to take it. I kind of had a similar dream like a while back, but of course every dream, it's not a vision, so you gotta be careful where with that. You don't want to apply something random in a dream, with prophecy, and when it doesn't, correlate. But I believe this dream right here was spiritual, dealing with the chariots and them, beaming, people down with those laser beams, which we're about to get in second as the 13th chapter. If we, hope and pray that we're of that number and are those meant to be saved, meant to be delivered, to be protected in those times. Because in that dream, I was protected from it, man. I was safe from those laser beams that were being shot, man. So like I mentioned, they were getting pretty close to me, landing into houses next to me. And of course, my flesh, got a little jumpy, right? It started to doubt a little bit, but, remain faithful. Yahweh Bashem Shai got this, man. And Lord's will, we're of that number once again to be delivered, man. To have that spot on that chariot, man. So we're doing what we can now and to make our calling and election sure. Because in that dream, as soon as I shut that door, you see a laser beam just beam all those people down that were trying to get in, man. So Lord's will, we are of that number, man. Yahweh Ratzah. But it shall come to pass in the last days, saith the Most High, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. So, going into these visions and dreams that people be having. So you see, tons of people coming out and speaking on just how scary and bad times that we are coming into, man. People having panic attacks from these dreams, man. But second Ezra 13th chapter, just to add on to the point now, and it came to pass after 7 dreams, and it came to pass after 7 days I dreamed a dream by night, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea that it moved all the waves thereof, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. It's going to our Lord Yahweh Shai, come back with that army, which is going to be the angels that are in those vehicles, man, those chariots. And when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. And like I said in that dream, these people were shook, man. They were in awe. They were afraid. And once there was a lot of screaming, and Yahweh Bashem Shai is going to tear this place up, man. And guess what? These chariots are going to have a role in that. That's why I mentioned, we hope and pray that we're out there number and are going to be protected, and defended and delivered in those times, man. Because just because in the dream that, I was safe, you were protected, does not just give you the, for lack of better words, is a go-ahead to think that you're already delivered and saved, But, we hope and pray that we are of that number to be protected, to be delivered in those times. That's why we should do what we can now to, please Yahweh Bashem Shai and what we can in order to be saved. Like I mentioned, do what we can in order to make our calling, election sure, working our own salvation in fear and trembling. Because I also mentioned in the lesson is another reason why we were to fear Yahweh Bashem Shai. Because like I mentioned, those shots were getting close. That could have been you. That could have been me. That was hit by those laser beams. But in that dream, I was protected and safe. And hey, Lord willing, man. Lord willing. But verse 4, and whatsoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth felleth when it filled the fire. And it's not literal fire coming out of his actual mouth. It's going to those concentrated beams of fire coming out of the mouths of those chariots, those laser beams. You can look at pictures and images of, so-called UFOs, shooting laser beams. Or, the tractor beam coming out the bottom of that chariot, coming out of the mouth of that chariot. Verse 5, and after this I beheld, and lo, there were gathered together a multitude of men out of the number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the men that came out of the sea. So you have the nations try to come together against Yahweh Shai, which you see in Independence Day and all these different alien, like movies where these devils are always coming out top in the end. But guess what? This is Yahweh Bashem Shai's movie, and you're going to lose. You're going to lose, man. It's written. But he beheld, and lo, and he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. So this is describing the chariot, the fathership our Lord Yahweh Shai is coming back on. And of course you have in Babylon the Great that Queen of Heaven spirit being pushed, where they're calling what should be the fathership, but they're calling it the mothership. Which is off, man. Verse 7. But I have seen the region or place where the hill was graven, and I could not. So you couldn't see the beginning, the end of that chariot, man. Showing how massive it was. Hey, these people have seen nothing yet, man. Verse 8. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst to fight. Verse 9, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. Whew. But only I saw a sound of his mouth that had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempest. And there's also another example. There was a shoe commercial. I think it was either Nike, Adidas, maybe. I forget the exact shoe company, but they made a commercial pretty much dealing with the chariots. You know, pretty much tearing up everything, shooting those laser beams, man. Verse 11. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. So people are going to be turned into literal dust, man. You know, in my dream, these people were getting evaporated, man, instantly. Which, you know, once I saw those shots being, shot from the chariot, the so-called UFO, they're going everywhere, like I mentioned, but I only saw these people get taken out pretty much near the end. But like I said, near the middle part, there was, tons of screaming, man. But let's see. And burned them every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing would be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. And like I mentioned, War of the Worlds, that's a good example right there, where you saw those, pretty much the chariots, shooting those people, those laser beams, and them being turned into literal dust, man. Their clothes just floating, flying in the wind. Now, I have a few more scriptures, like I said, I don't know if it's a super, gigantic lesson, but it's good. Wisdom Psalm 5:2 one more time. When they see it, should be troubled with terrible fear, and should be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for. So when these people are going to be shook and they're going to be afraid, at that point, Luke 21:25-28. Yes, and there should be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth stress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. So you're seeing these signs in the heavens are taking place. Just a few weeks back, you had the blood moon. So that happened. And also mass chariot sightings. You also had, I believe either a month ago, pretty much the chariots were the talk of the town. Popping up in the news left and right. Verse 26, man has found them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. You have seen nothing yet, man. And what's it in the dream? These chariots tore things up, man. Like I said, they shot those laser beams everywhere. It was kind of like in one direction and just kind of like spread out all, around the other, Now, verse 27, and then shall he see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And the Son of Man speaking of Lord Yahweh Shai, and that cloud speaking of those chariots, the so-called UFOs, going to Psalms 1, 4, and 3. How the... Let's actually get there real quick. I don't want to butcher it. This is Psalms chapter 104, verse 3. As who laid the beams of the chambers in the waters, who makes the clouds his chariots. So showing you what the clouds is speaking of, not literal white, puffy clouds, as they like to push in these Christian churches. But verse 28, and when these things begin to come to pass, and look up, lift your heads, for your redemption draw nigh. Showing you that we're almost home and we're almost out of here, man. And once again, I thought that popped into mind when I was in that dream. When I saw those chariots start to shoot those laser beams, I'm like, hey, this is it. This place is through. Because you're not going to have these chariots start to, tear things up and start taking people out when, there's still prophecies that need to be fulfilled. So I believe in the dream, it was pretty much near the end, So let's get back at Acts. Let's see. We can get Acts 2:19 and get the last two more. Now it says, now show wonders in the heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. So you're seeing what's in these signs in the heavens that we read in the book of Luke. Signs in the sun, the moon, and stars, and upon the earth's transformation with perplexity. So we're seeing these end time signs that would take place and play out before Lord Yahweh Shai would make his grand return. Of course, there are prophecies that still need to take place and play out before Lord Yahweh Shai returns, especially before these chariots start to put in that work. Verse 20, the sun shall be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and noble day of the Lord come. So once these are things that would play out and take place before our Lord Yahweh Shai will return. Now, as Matthew 24 and 31, to also go into a role that the chariots will play in the delivering of the elect. Now, as he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the four corners of the earth, from one end of heaven to the other, as we are spread across the four corners of the earth everywhere. But the main deliverance will take place over here in Babylon the Great, which you see, our people mainly gathered at. But that's also once in a role the chariots will play also in the destruction of this place. Now, let's close it out with book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 5, verse 7. It's like it was kind of long, or I kind of rambled a little bit, but Lord will, kind of tied the points to the best of my ability, and you were edified. Ecclesiastes 5 and 7, and Lord, it made sense. Now, it says, make no tarrying to turn to the Lord and put an offering from day to day. Hey, this should really, shake you up, man, because, in my dream, my flesh was kind of shaking up. Especially with how close those shots, were. But, Yahweh Shem Shai will defend and protect his elect, man. We hope and pray that we're of that number and are those men, Lord willing. Once again, in that dream, I was safe and pretty much protected from all those laser beams that were being shot, man, especially when it hit all those people, man. But once again, Lord willing, we're of that number and are those men to be protected and to Lord willing, be saved in those days, man. As make no tarrying to turn to the Lord and put out from day to day, what do you see many of our people are doing? Delaying seeking out Yahweh B'Shem Shai, delaying to repent, to turn to the Lord. But it says, and putting out from day to day, for suddenly shall the wrath of the Lord come. For suddenly shall the wrath of the Lord come forth, and in thy security thou shalt be destroyed. Many of our people are in a so-called lofty and jolly estate, thinking everything they'll find in dandy. The Lord is come as a thief in the night, man. Unexpected. As in perish in the day of vengeance. Our Lord Yahweh Shai is getting ready to turn very, very soon. So those that are repent and seek out Yahweh B'Shem Shai before it's too late, you will be destroyed, man. In that dream, once again, these chariots tore these people up, man. And once in the Lord's will, we're of that number and are going to be safe and protected and delivered in those times, man, like I was in my dream, Lord willing. But that should, be a faith booster as well as put the fear in you to continue to go hard, to keep pushing, to once you can get right with your Yahweh B'Shem Shai before it's too late, man. Because, hey, that could have been me in the dream. So that's why we're doing what we can now in order to preserve our spot on that chariot, which ultimately is all preordained, but that doesn't mean we don't, try or do our best, but gonna close it out. And once again, it's like if I sound like a broken record, but Lord was edifying. I do want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh B'Shem Shai, B'Shem Kakadash, double honor to the apostles, and else great millstone for teaching us his truth, peace, and blessings to the hope like the Israel and Shalom. See you next one, Lord willing.